the shorthand is I tell people to go look up ESG and BlackRock, because the shorthand of it, are you wondering why everything feels more stupid? This is a big reason. So I wanted to bring you on and ask you, can you give us, and yes, I'm going to use this as a title, can you give us the ABCs of ESG?
Hey, that is a good title. Sure. I mean, I'll try and keep it quick, because I have given expanded explanations on my show, which people can go check out. But to keep the shorthand version that people can actually process, hopefully, in 2004, around 2004, actually it was 2000, UN comes out with some global climate initiative plans. By 2004, they actually have a paper that gets put out, and they're calling for what will soon be referred to as ESG. It didn't even have that name at the time, but it was essentially trying to create a public-private partnership between the UN, all of the biggest governments in the world, all of the biggest central banks in the world, and all of the biggest businesses in the world, all working in tandem to address the damage that capitalism causes is the framing that they used. Whether or not you buy into that is a second conversation we can get into maybe. But what do you know? All of the biggest businesses that he sends, this is, what's his name? Kofi Annan was the Secretary General of the UN at the time. He sends out this letter to 50 biggest CEOs on earth, and he says, hey, this is our plan. This is what we want to do. What do you guys think? And they all respond in the affirmative. Yeah, that sounds fucking awesome. Obviously, we would love to be in bed with all of the biggest governments and biggest central banks on earth. We're in. Even though, basically what this letter is saying is like, big business is destroying the world. So like, why would big business be like, yeah, of course we want to be we want to help, and we want to take blame for destroying the world. Which, by the way, I don't believe in anthropogenic climate change. I think it's all nonsense. And I think that carbon emissions is like the product of life, and it's how we all stay alive. And ultimately, it has benefited our lives to use fossil fuels. And you are anti-human if you go down that route. That's a side note. We can maybe get into that later, too. So ESG at the time is just kind of a concept, but it starts to be implemented in the accounting practices when it comes to high finance. And what really sets the fire under this thing is the World Economic Forum gets on board. They have their meetings in Davos every year. They have all of the biggest CEOs on earth come out there. They all talk about this shit. They all basically start to game plan how this is going to work. And then it becomes an ESG scoring system where you have environmental, social, and governance are the three categories of ESG. Environmental is pretty straightforward. It's what your environmental impact is. Then social is kind of like the social justice stuff. Are you hiring enough women? Are you hiring enough minority candidates? And then governance is your board equitable? Like, do you have diversity on the board? Also, are you alleviating and addressing things like sexual harassment or pay inequality? Well, just basically more woke shit. So those three categories constitute the entire framework for ESG. If your score is north of 60, you're able to be invested in by the biggest money managers on earth. The biggest money managers on earth manage tens and tens and tens of trillions of dollars. So if you don't have a high enough score and you're a publicly traded company, well, then BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard will threaten to either divest themselves of you, which means that they sell your stocks, which causes your stock to plummet, or they just won't invest in you in the first place. And that is basically a backbreaker to any company that's trying to make it in the world, because if you don't get the biggest money managers on earth to buy your stock, well, you're pretty much fucked. So that's it. That's how it works. And fortunately, we have over the past year or so, I started talking about this like a year and a half ago, but over the past year or so, it has started to gain steam where kind of the dissident right and the libertarian sphere has begun speaking about this. People are starting to wake up to how nefarious it is, how ultimately anti-human, anti-capitalist it is, and also how fascist it is. Because really what I'm describing, without saying it explicitly, I'll say it explicitly now, is fascism. It is a unification of the biggest businesses and the biggest governments and the biggest central banks on earth working in tandem to reimagine the entire global economy as well as civilization writ large. It's lunacy. It's extraordinarily dangerous, and it's done. What makes it even more dangerous is it's done with this idea of benevolence, that we are all knowing, we're better than you, we're looking after you. So it enables these people that go along with it to feel really good about themselves as they destroy the world, which is the most dangerous path you can be on, and which is why I have made this such a big part of my show, trying to wake people up to what it means.